Good morning and welcome to the Bowling University studio from the International Bowling Campus in Arlington, Texas. I'm John Karabatsis and I'll be your host for this edition of the Bowling University Tuesday Morning Profit Break. Thank you for joining us. The Tuesday Morning Profit Break is an opportunity for sharing insights on how to grow revenue, reduce costs, and enrich yourself, your team, and your business. Welcome to our new viewers and welcome back to those of you joining us again. Thank you for taking a few moments out of your busy day. So grab your coffee or your favorite morning beverage and let's get started improving your profitability. Today, we're going to be talking about some industry trends with the help of our partners at Boston Beer. Joining us today is the Product Education Manager for the Boston Beer Company, Mr. Matt Perazzelli. Matt, thank you so much for taking a few minutes this morning to share some of the latest industry trends and updates with the Boston Beer Company.
John, thank you so much for having me. And first and foremost, thank you to everybody out there for your support of Boston Beer. We have a great partnership. And listen, there's a lot of uncertainty out there in the world today. One thing is for certain. That's when you're bowling and you have a cold Boston Beer product, you're going to have a good time. So we've come together to make that happen for a whole lot of people. So we got to get that out of the way first. Second, we're going to get into some industry trends today, and I'm going to give you some updates on what's happening in the on-premise. So we're talking about your world. And then we're going to wrap up by taking a look at what's happening within Boston Beer. So we'll look at the growth of our brands, and we're certainly excited to share some of that data with everybody out there on the call. So let's jump into it. So here we go. I'll start here with some big picture trends. This is what's happening in the beer industry right now. We have an inverse trajectory right now between what we would call above premium segments, and you see that in the blue line on your screen, and premium and below premium segments, and that's illustrated right there in red. Going back to 2015, if you take a look at premium and below premium brands, they commanded over half of the beer category. They were sitting at about 56% share. Fast forward to 2021, they're less than 40%. What's taken up all that slack? Seltzer, malt beverages, craft beer. When we're talking about these segments, we're talking about high profit, high margin items. And that is a beautiful thing for everybody that's viewing this right now, because there is a clear-cut trade-off opportunity right in front of us. And I'm going to give you a little bit more color commentary on that on some of these next slides. Before I do that, when we're looking at this data, everyone, we're talking about real scan data of these products, okay? And this is up to date. You can see it on the bottom of the screen through July. And then whenever I talk about some survey data, which I'll do right now, we're talking about these Nielsen polls that we have access to, right? So these are what drinkers are telling us. Speaking of which, we've got some great news for what's happening at your establishments right now. First and foremost, velocity in your bar, in your bowling alley is up. And if we take a look at what happened from 2019 to 2021, those same products that we were selling, whether it's in the alcohol space or whether it's food, they are pulling 20% faster now than they were 2 years ago. I'm going to couple that with another stat for you, and then we'll get a takeaway. Second, when drinkers are bowling or they're sitting at your bar, they are willing to spend money. How much money? 3 out of 4 of them say that they're spending the same or more that they were spending pre-COVID. Back to my initial point about trade-up. The opportunity is there. High-end, high-profit segments are growing, and the drinkers are there on-premise, ready to spend their discretionary income on those segments. I will point one thing out, though. They're spending more money, they're making less trips. So let's double down on the importance of that particular occasion. When they're there, we need to capitalize, and we need to trade them up to some of these segments that are going to grow our profits. And we know that's the name of the game for everybody who's watching this right now. One more thing for you in terms of the drinker data and the drinker responses that we're seeing for everybody that's going out right now. When they're out, they're choosing lead brands. They're choosing brands that they know and that they trust. And that goes back to what I said previously, right? When they're there, they want to ensure that when they're spending their hard-earned money, that they're going to get a return on that. So they're not experimenting quite as much in 2021 as they were in years past. We're here, right? Boston Beer is here to deliver growing brands in those lead segments, brands that drinkers know and trust. Now, when they're drinking, when they're hanging out, when they're bowling, when they're having a good time, we've asked them, what's more important now compared to a couple years ago? Well, same story, right? Here's our survey data. High quality and well-known brands are at the top of the list. Over 25% respondents said, I want a high-quality drink, and I want it from a brand that I know and trust. Well, Samuel Adams, Dogfish Head, Twisted Tea, Angry Orchard, Truly, these all fit the bill. And that's a great thing for everybody on this call. Let's dive into Boston Beer a little bit, okay? So if we look across segments, and by the way, we need to mention something before we go any further. There's a lot happening in the world of beer right now. A lot happening today that wasn't happening just 5 years ago, right? So it's very difficult to wrap our heads around as retailers. Imagine how difficult it is for a consumer when they go out and they see brands and they see segments that didn't even exist just a few years ago. Well, looking at segment versus segment is a pretty good way to keep our wits about us, right? When we're stocking our bar, our back fridge, when we're putting on our draft towers. Well, here we go. Let's go right down the line. IPAs, we've got them. Dogfish Head 60 Minute is a top 5 IPA, and it doesn't stop there. Dogfish Head Hazy O, Samuel Adams Wicked Easy. We're playing in this space, and we're delivering brands that are going to grow profits. Second, Sam Adams Oktoberfest. What else needs to be said? Well, one thing. IPAs get a lot of publicity, right? And I love IPAs just like I'm sure a lot of you do. IPAs are the #1 category in craft beer. The #2 category in craft beer is seasonal. And 1 out of every 3 drinkers that's ready to drink craft wants nothing to do with an IPA, believe it or not. And when they're not drinking IPAs, they're drinking seasonal beer. Sam Adams Oktoberfest and our whole seasonal portfolio delivers. Now, the main event, I think, for right now, which is hard seltzer. This is the #1 growing category right now within the beer space, and we have the #1 growing hard sparkling water. And on down the line. Angry Orchard Crisp, the #1 cider. Twisted Tea, the #1 hard tea. And then we have an emerging segment that we're actually playing in now in Boston Beer as well, which is non-alcoholic beers. Here's the takeaway. Brands that drinkers know and trust are under the Boston Beer umbrella. And again, a tip of the cap to everybody who's watching this for supporting us and for selling these brands in your establishments. Let's dig into Truly a little bit, okay? And let's dig into hard seltzer in and of itself. A lot of brands in the hard seltzer space. As a matter of fact, as we're watching this, there's over 200 different hard seltzer brands that we might see out there in the market. None of them are contributing the growth that Truly is contributing to the category. And you may see out there that we have hard seltzer. We've got a bunch of different flavors. Now we have tea. We've got punch lemonade. Truly is a growth engine for a category that has taken off like an absolute rocket ship. So we want to double down on that message. And when somebody's out there looking for a hard seltzer, Truly is ready to satisfy that need. Last but not least on the Boston Beer front, okay? Something that we're very proud of year to date. A lot of great brewers on that list in front of you, a lot of great suppliers, breweries. Nobody has grown more year to date than Boston Beer. We're right at the top of that list when we look at a dollar sale change, from a year ago. And again, that's thanks in large part to everybody who's watching this right now. Thank you for your support of Boston Beer, because together we are bringing people back to a sense of normalcy with a bowling ball in one hand and a Samuel Adams Boston Lager perhaps in the other. Back to you, John.
Matt, thank you. Thank you and Boston Beer for that great information. Hey, anytime you put bowling and beer together, it's a great topic, right? So we've got time for a couple of questions for you. That was pretty impressive data on seltzers. In your opinion, what factors are driving that phenomenal growth?
Yeah, and the growth is phenomenal, John. The growth is unprecedented. And just to wrap our head around it for a minute, and then I'm going to address your question. This category didn't exist basically 6 years ago. Right now, it has a 10 share of the total beer category, 10%, right? What's driving that, right, to your question? A couple things. Number one, there's this unstoppable movement towards health-conscious options. Hard seltzer, usually right around 100 calories, Truly's 100. Very low sugar, Truly is 1 gram of sugar, gluten-free. This is a movement that's not stopping anytime soon. People are checking labels and they want to know what's in their drinks more now than ever before. But the other thing, John, that I'll point to is the fact that it's a refreshing beverage. It's easy, it's light-bodied, it's designed to be drank in a session, meaning more than one, responsibly, of course. But a lot of that, again, those are similar themes that we see with light beer, right? Somebody who wants something light, it's not going to weigh me down, it's got less calories. However, seltzer provides a lot more options, right? A lot more flavors. So I think those are two of the big ones that I would point to. This category is not going away anytime soon.
Okay. Well, so rightfully so, everybody's talking about seltzer, but what's going on in the world of beer?
Yeah, I'm so happy you asked that question, John. We are the Boston Beer Company. I mean, you see Samuel Adams on my shirt, so we do need to address that, right? In the world of beer, well, year over year, we see one particular segment right at the top of the list in craft beer, and that's IPAs. Same is true now, just like it's been for the past several years. But within IPA, John, I'll point to a couple things. There's fragmentation within that category. So, you know, you may find yourself drinking an IPA that has this kind of cloudy appearance. It bursts with these aromas of orange and grapefruit and lemon and tropical fruit. Hazy IPAs are carrying the day right now within IPAs. And you may see some hazy IPAs at any of your establishments or at the local grocery store. Those are extremely hot. Double IPAs are still hot too. So there's a lot of people that are out there for, a little bit more alcoholic options with those very aggressive hot flavors that sometimes scorch your palate. IPAs are hot. Seasonals are hot, like I mentioned. But I'll say one other thing, John, with beer. Similar trend that I mentioned with seltzer is carrying into the world of beer, and that's lighter options with less calories. Now, actually, we see IPAs out there that are getting down around the century mark or even below in terms of calories. So that like occasion-based thinking where the drinker's like, all right, I'm going to be here for a little while. What do I want that's not going to weigh me down? It's making its way into beer too. But, what's going on? A lot. Okay. And breweries are throwing stuff at the wall and right now and hoping that it sticks because the drinker's pretty fickle in 2021.
Sure. Well, just following up on that, because we have time for one more question. We've been hearing a lot about IPAs over the last several years. Is that still a hot segment? Are IPAs still hot?
Oh yeah, IPAs are still hot. I mean, they're still right up at the top of the charts when we take a look at segments that are growing. But I'll point to another one too that's growing within craft beer, and that's sour beers. So I see sour beers almost as like the final frontier for a craft beer drinker. If they've moved from full flavored beer to a really hoppy beer, sometimes they want to take the next step and reach into something that's a little bit tart. And nice thing is, in our portfolio, we've got Dogfish Head. We've got the #1 selling sour beer in the country, and that's Dogfish Head Sequench. So sours are hot. But like I mentioned before, I mean, seasonality plays a big part in brewing and drinking. So, a lot of times people are just looking for something to sit down that fits that specific occasion. Summer, fall, winter, something a little bit heartier. But yeah, I mean, it's an exciting time. Listen, there is no time like the present to be drinking beer ever, and you want to be drinking it in the United States of America. So we've got more variety, and we've got more breweries than anywhere else.
Awesome. And now is a good time. You're making me thirsty. So, Matt, thank you, and thanks to Boston Beer for that great information. I'd like to remind all of you that if you would like more information or have questions, please contact Jay Tritley at j@stemarketing.com, and he'll be happy to help. As we wrap up another edition of the Tuesday Morning Profit Break, remember that when your focus is on growing people, people will grow your business. We look forward to seeing you next week at 10:15 Eastern for another great episode of the Tuesday Morning Profit Break. If you have any questions about today's show or would like additional information, you can reach us at any time at education@bpaa.com. Also, you and your team can watch any of our previous episodes 24/7 by visiting bowlinguniversity.net. Until then, cheers, kanpai to our friends in Japan. I'm John Karabatsis, and do for one what you wish you could do for everyone. We'll see you next week.